Welcome back. All right, so as promised, now we're going to talk about the West. This will post 2 hours after the other one's gone live, so you guys will have something to watch on Saturday while I'm watching hockey at the time this is going live. It's going to be hockey all day, so I figured we'll do the quarter mark grades now, because why not? I always do it a couple of games ahead for certain teams, but there's teams in the league that have played 22 games, so what's a quarter mark anymore? So we've got Anaheim through Vegas in the Pacific, Chicago through Winnipeg in the Central, and again, like I did with the East, I will go team by team, and then I will assign a letter grade using the black marker right here when I'm all done writing everything up on the board. So for Anaheim, it's going to be some blue here. Goals for per game, they are 25th in the National Hockey League, and again, this is prior to Friday night's games. So Friday night's games are not factored into this. I thought, no, I'll get everything together. I didn't think 2 games was going to make a big difference anyway. So 25th for Anaheim. Goals against per game, they're actually in the upper half of the NHL. They're tied for 13th. So the goaltending's really bailing them out. 5-on-5 shooting percentage, they're 22nd in that area. So as we know, the offense struggles with Anaheim. And then 5-on-5 save percentage, it's good. They're tied for 4th. So good save percentage for Anaheim. The goaltending is definitely, as we know, bailing them out. And we'll get into more of that. Goals for above expected. So like on the other board, if it's a negative for goals for above expected, that means that Anaheim has scored 6.27 goals less than expected given their chances. And, the opportunities are measured in such a way that they decide, hey, these chances eventually they have to start going in. Yeah, they've got a negative 6.27, but their goals against above expected, the negative is a good number on this one, remember, and it is one heck of a number, 15.74. This is Dostal and Gibson being fantastic, right? So for Anaheim, the goaltending's keeping them in this. The defense is keeping them in this. If the offense could get things going, and it's interesting because I don't think there's a team in the East that was red, blue. Oh, actually, Buffalo had the opposite. Interesting, and they played against each other tonight. That's really interesting. All right, Calgary, interesting to me, just to me. Calgary, in goals for per game, they're 23rd. So simply, if Calgary wants to make something of this run they've been on, and there's some debate about whether or not they want to, adding a little bit of offense would definitely help. And goals against per game, they're 8th in the National Hockey League, which is Dustin Wolf, right? Shooting percentage, 5-on-5, they are tied for 26th in the National Hockey League. But where it gets really interesting is 5-on-5 save percentage, they are 1st in the National Hockey League. So these numbers come directly from the NHL website. These numbers come from MoneyPuck. So that's your advanced stats. I like throwing in some advanced stats with some traditional stats. I don't think it hurts anything. And again, every team uses advanced stats. Now, will Calgary continue to have the same kind of trajectory? Yes. Goals for above expected, negative 4.25. And goals saved above expected is also a negative 12.47. So Wolf and Vladar are giving them very good goaltending. Calgary and Anaheim with similar numbers. Calgary's numbers are better, though, in terms of the save percentage. And, yeah, the goals against, they're a little bit better. But it does show that Anaheim's not that far off from competing with teams like Calgary in the division. Edmonton, there's going to be more blue than I would have expected for Edmonton. They are 20th in goals per game. That's kind of insane quarter of the way through the season. We can't talk about slow starts now because we're about a quarter of the way through the season. So, yeah, that's kind of shocking. They're 17th in goals against per game. Not a huge surprise. Stuart Skinner is never going to be a goaltender. I don't think anyways who's going to be like, in like Hellebuck's category. And you don't need him to be with Edmonton. This offense is supposed to be top 5 in the NHL. So you just need a goaltender to be good. And 17th should be fine for Edmonton, but their goals scored per game is low. Their shooting percentage 5-on-5 is 29th in the National Hockey League. Yeah. And then their save percentage 5-on-5 is tied for 23rd in the National Hockey League. So it's not great. And then you get into goals for above expected, negative 10.39. And it's weird because I think Edmonton's playing well right now, but they had a really, really rough start, and it's going to take a while before these numbers are back to where we would expect them to be. Goals against above expected, 2.73. So negative 10.39 goals for above expected, meaning they've scored about 10 goals less than one would expect with the chances they've had, which you can chalk up to bad luck, or you can say they're just not hitting the net. You can look at it both ways. The LA Kings, well, there's going to be some red with the LA Kings, starting with goals per game. How about that? Tied for 16th. A little more of an attack to the LA Kings this year in general through the first quarter, although lately... and then for goals against per game, they are tied for 10th. They're one of these teams that has a lot of ones that they're tied with other teams. In terms of 5-on-5 shooting percentage, they are 12th in the NHL. So that is a red number as well. Might surprise some people. And save percentage 5-on-5 is tied for 13th. So 5-on-5 stats are given a lot of weight. I figured I'd use them in this video. As I used them in the Eastern video as well. 5-on-5 scoring, 5-on-5 save percentage, shooting percentage can give you an idea of how things are going when you remove the power play and the penalty kill. Goals for above expected for the LA Kings. It's still a positive. It's 0.48. So it's not a lot, but it's still a positive. And goals saved, or goals against above expected is actually... it is a minus, but that means it's a good. It's a good minus. Again, going back to idiocracy, it's a pretty big minus. Negative 0.78, one of my favorite lines. Idiocracy is full of my favorite lines ever, but it's a pretty big minus there, Frito. Negative 0.78. So the LA Kings are red all the way across. And that's kind of impressive considering I think they've been middling at points here, but yeah, the overall numbers are not bad. San Jose. San Jose's getting better, but there's still going to be a lot of the blue on this one. In terms of goals scored per game, they are tied for 27th. But we can point out last year they were easily 32nd. They were struggling to score 2 goals per game. So the fact that they're ahead of teams shows progress. Goals against, they are also 27th. So not optimal. Not optimal to be 27 goals for and goals against. That tells you they're probably not headed to the playoffs, which was what we expected. Now, 5-on-5 shooting percentage, they are 30th in the National Hockey League in that category. 5-on-5 save percentage is actually better. They're 20th in 5-on-5 save percentage because Blackwood's been pretty good. Goals scored above expected is blue as well, negative 7.53. So they're having some struggles, which includes the fact that Granlund's off to a really good start to the season. Good first quarter, right? 24 points already. And there's still other goals that would be expected. And then it's not all blue, as their goals against above expected is a negative. So that's a good thing. You don't want to have more goals against than expected. And in this case, it's a negative 1.98. It's not like one of the best numbers on the board. Anaheim is the best number on the board, even including everybody. Yeah, they're including everybody. They're definitely the best on the board. But the fact that San Jose's in the red on that isn't too bad. Then we get to Seattle. Going to be some blue for Seattle as well. Goals for per game is 18th. That is getting better. Their goals scored per game has definitely been getting better lately. And then their goals against per game, they are tied for 10th. They're tied with the LA Kings, 10th on that list. So that's good for Seattle. The goaltending's holding up. Their shooting percentage, 5-on-5, is 17th in the National Hockey League, which is, right around the middle of the pack, but a little below, so it's in blue. And their 5-on-5 save percentage tied for 13th. So again, the goaltending is helping them out a little bit. And they have numbers that are almost the same as the LA Kings. And they're going to be playing against each other. So that should be an interesting one. And then goals for above expected, 1.02. So that's not too far off from the LA Kings there either. And then goals against above expected, they're red on that one too. But pretty strong number there, negative 5.91, because Joey Decord has been fantastic. So the numbers for Seattle, a little bit better, I would say, than LA's, but it's close between the two. And yes, I have started going in that direction. It feels like my hand wants to do that. I just blame it on being left-handed. That's what I blame it on. Vancouver, it's not a pretty picture for Vancouver, although it starts off with one, kind of. So they're 14th in goals per game right now. I would think on the road they're a little bit higher than they are at home, but yeah, 14th. And then for goals against per game, they are now 22nd. So that has definitely got hurt by their 6-game homestand where they only won the 2 games. 5-on-5 shooting percentage for the Vancouver Canucks. They are tied for 5th in the National Hockey League, which, considering Pettersson's just starting to get things going, might bode well for the Vancouver Canucks this year. 5-on-5 save percentage. I'm going to need the blue one for this. Yep. They are 25th in the National Hockey League and 5-on-5 save percentage. Lankinen had a great start, though, didn't he? Isn't that fun? Had a great start for Lankinen. It's kind of started to level out a little bit. I think they're overplaying him personally. They don't have much choice, though. Goals for above expected, 7.07. I was surprised by this because what this means is they're 14th in goals per game, but they're scoring more than one might expect. So last year we saw Vancouver with some ridiculous numbers early in the season. You have to hope this won't regress the way that we saw regression last year. And goals against above expected, 9.19. And that's not all on Shilovs at this point. Lankinen would be in that category now too, as we're hearing about Demko being, close and he's working on it. And I don't know if it's a coincidence that he's like, you know what, I'm almost ready when we're starting to see the goaltending numbers go the wrong way in Vancouver. Vegas, probably going to be a lot of red for Vegas, isn't there? Sure there is. So they're 4th in goals for per game, which is mildly surprising because they lost Marchessault. The expectation was they wouldn't be as dangerous offensively. I'd argue they're just as dangerous. They are 16th in goals against per game. Their goaltending has been hit and miss at times, but Samsonov's been the better of the 2 goalies, so we'll see if he gets the lion's share of starts the rest of the way. But I think he's been the better of the 2 goaltenders. And then shooting percentage 5-on-5, they are tied with Vancouver. They're tied for 5th, which shows how much better Vancouver could be with better defense and goaltending. And a little bit of this. Anyways. And that's even with Vancouver scoring above expected. And then you get into save percentage 5-on-5. I won't need the red one for that because Vegas is 21st. So if you're a Canuck fan watching this, you're like, so we're not that far off from Vegas. Kinda. Sure. Sure, why not? Sure. Why not say it? And then Vegas, in terms of goals scored above expected, 8.19. So that's a solid number. Goals against above expected, they have red there too. It's a negative 2.96. So Vegas is getting the goaltending, and that's the big difference between Vegas and Vancouver at this point. Is it feels like Vegas is getting some saves that maybe Vancouver hasn't been early in the season. And now that we're through the first quarter, we'll see how the second quarter goes. Or we're close to being through the first quarter. Like the first quarter, I think technically is this coming week, but it's close, really, really close. So we get into the Central Division in Chicago. I'm going to need blue for Chicago, but not as much as you might think. They are 30th in goals per game. Not a surprise there. Bedard's been struggling because he's on a team that doesn't score goals. And so you just shut him down and problem solved. Goals against per game, they are tied for 13th. So they are tied with the Ducks. Both Chicago and Anaheim, that goaltending is doing everything it can to keep them in the hunt for a playoff spot. Mrazek has been fantastic, and Soderblom deserves a lot of credit too. He's been very good for Chicago. 5-on-5 shooting percentage, and yeah, we're going to need the blue one for that. They are tied for 26th. 5-on-5 save percentage, though, I'm going to need the red marker for that because they're tied for 10th. So a lot of tying going on there with Chicago. Wonder what's going on with that. But anyways, I didn't know what that means. Goal scoring. So goals for above expected, negative 4.26. So definitely looking for a little more finish, but if you're a Chicago fan, you know that. Goals against above expected. The negative number is good. It's 6.70. And that's Mrazek and Soderblom being fantastic for them. So, yeah. Colorado. Colorado in goal scoring, they are 12th. Goals against per game, a lot of blue. And I think this is going to change as the season rolls along. So they're 29th in goals against per game. Their 5-on-5 shooting percentage, 24th in the National Hockey League. I was very surprised by that. Their 5-on-5 save percentage is 30th. That has got to improve. Goals scored or goals for above expected, that's a negative. So negative 8.31, and goals against above expected 9.33. So there's where the slow start for Georgiev really shows up. And so for Colorado, goals for per game, the rest of these numbers have to get better. Goals for per game at 12. Honestly, that's going to get better too. Once everybody's healthy and they get rolling, and they're 11-9 right now, and I think they are going to get rolling. These numbers all come up, and their goals for per game, I think they end up in the top 5 pretty soon. Dallas. Dallas is 11th in goals per game. That feels like they're underachieving at this point. Goals against per game, first. Pete DeBoer, they're first. Dallas has prided themselves on their defensive play for years, and this year is no difference to that. They're 13th in 5-on-5 shooting percentage. That can get better. Johnston, Robertson are two that come to mind that have to start shooting a little better than they have been. Their shooting percentages have to go up. They shouldn't be 13th. And then in 5-on-5 save percentage, they're 9th. So the defense is helping more than the goaltending, I think. That's what that number tells me anyways. Goals for above expected, 3.69. And then goals against above expected is actually a negative, so this is a good thing. 8.35. A negative 8.35. So for Dallas, it's red all the way across the board. They and LA being the only teams in the West so far that are red across the board. And I have not gone over this chart. I just filled out all the numbers, and I'm finding out with all you fine people. Minnesota, in terms of where everybody stands. Minnesota is 7th in goals for per game. I don't know how sustainable that is, but they're also 2nd in goals against per game. That, with the style of hockey Minnesota plays, that is absolutely sustainable. Their shooting percentage 5-on-5 is 3rd in the National Hockey League. Their save percentage 5-on-5 is 2nd in the NHL. Those numbers are pretty good. Goals for above expected for Minnesota, 10.51. Will that number come down? Maybe, but 10.51, that's great. That's fantastic. They're getting goals that people wouldn't expect. Goals against above expected, this is where the negative's a good thing. 5.25. So red all the way across the board for Minnesota. We're already seeing evidence that the Central is better than the Pacific. Raise your hand if you're surprised. Put your hand down. You're kidding. You got to be kidding. Nashville. Yeah, it's been a rough year for Nashville. The blue marker's going to get a workout because they're 32nd in goals for per game. Goals against per game, they're 18th. And if it wasn't for Saros, they'd be right near the bottom there too. 5-on-5 shooting percentage, they are 32nd in the National Hockey League. That's dead last. Save percentage 5-on-5, 22nd. So not dead last, but not a great number. Goals scored above expected. Looks like that number broke my brain. Minus 17.94. So that's almost a goal a game below expected. Goals against above expected, 5.33. I don't know how much of that is Wedgwood. I'd be willing to think a lot of that's going to be when Wedgwood has not had a good first quarter, which means they lean on Saros even more. I hope Saros doesn't get injured. St. Louis, I don't know why I'm grabbing that marker because it's going to be blue most of the way across here. 29 in terms of goals for per game. So St. Louis has struggled there. 26th in goals against per game. So, again, not great numbers, not adding up to playoffs if they can't get that improved. They are 20th in 5-on-5 shooting percentage. So that's a difference that's interesting. Just like here with Colorado, 5-on-5 shooting percentage way below their goals per game, which tells you a lot of power play goals in all likelihood. 5-on-5 save percentage for St. Louis, they are 26th in that category. So they need to improve everything in St. Louis. Goals scored above expected, negative 0.87. Goals against above expected, yep, 7.70. So it has been a rough year in St. Louis. If you're of the opinion that a little bit of everything's gone wrong, this number, this chart, all of this tells you, yeah, that's kind of how that's gone so far this year. Utah, way more blue than I would like for Utah so far. They are 24th in goals scored per game. Remember how they started the season red hot, scoring 5 goals a game? That is included in this 24th ranking. They are 23rd in goals against per game. Tremendous concern right now about the goaltending and all that with Utah and the defense and all that, but it's not going the way that I had hoped that it would when they went to Utah. I was hoping for, and it tells you too that if they'd stayed in Arizona, this is probably what would have happened too, and then everybody be jumping on them for C. They're never going to be any good. So better that they're in Utah going through this. Now, this is where it gets interesting too, because 5-on-5 shooting percentage, they're 16th. So they're not getting enough goals, but their shooting percentage is good 5-on-5. And their save percentage, 5-on-5, is tied for 16th. So these numbers tell you 5-on-5 they're playing okay. These numbers tell you overall it's still not a great picture. In terms of goal scoring, negative 3.31. Goals for above expected. That has to get better. Goals against above expected, though, is actually, it's a negative. It's not by a lot, but negative 0.75. I think that was higher earlier in the season, and I'm going to go ahead and say Vejmelka is right now the one that has a good rating there. I don't think Ingram still has a good rating with goals against above expected or goals saved above expected, right? And I confused that when I made the first take of the Eastern video. 10 minutes in, I realized I'd done all the numbers backwards. So I had to start over, and I had to wait until a while later to start over. It was fine. I was so happy with myself when I realized I'd done all the numbers backwards. Winnipeg. I don't know that I'm going to need a blue marker at all for them. Nope. I can put the blue marker down. Winnipeg. Number 1, goals scored per game. No argument there. Tied for 3rd in goals against per game. Only a surprise that they're 3rd. But look at this. 1st, 2nd, tied for 3rd. So defense is the name of the game in the Central. 5-on-5 shooting percentage. You know, I'm kind of surprised they're only 14th. But their power play has been deadly. So since their power play has been running at about 40% all year, maybe their 5-on-5 isn't helping them as much. And then save percentage 5-on-5, they're 7th in the NHL. You have Connor Hellebuck, you're probably going to have really good numbers. Goals for above expected, 5.59. Goals against above expected, negative 6.32. Meaning Hellebuck has been quite good, and they're getting the goaltending. So now we get the grades. I get the black marker out, we get the grade. Starting with Anaheim. I'm going to give Anaheim a C. Dostal is a big part of the reason they're getting the C, and now John Gibson's played well since coming back. The goaltending dragging them out of a D, which is where the lowest grade is on this. I'm not doing pluses or minuses on them either. Just A, B, C, and D. The F is for the end of the season. That's when you fail. Calgary, I'm going to give Calgary a B. They were not expected to be this good. Their scoring is still a problem, but Dustin Wolf's been fantastic. Their defense is really good. Calgary's staying in the mix. Edmonton, can I give Edmonton a D? Should I give Edmonton a D, or should I give them a C because they've been better lately? I'm going to give them a C. They've been better lately. So I'm going to make that a C. They do have a record above 500. LA, B. There was a lot of expectations, myself included, that LA would probably fall off and miss the playoffs this year. And so far, so good for them. And it's red all the way across, so I can't justify not having them be a B. San Jose, I'll give them a C. I'm not going to give them a D, which I consider to be a failing grade. When I went to school, if you got a D, you were failing. That's how that was. This idea that a D minus is a pass, that was invented for Tommy Boy as far as I was concerned. So, yeah, San Jose, I give them a C. Seattle, I'm going to go with a C for Seattle as well. The reality is that I think Seattle can be better than what they've been. Vancouver, on the road, they're excellent. At home, lousy. So I'm gonna throw a C on that one too. And then there's Vegas. I don't know if I can give Vegas an A. I think for their scoring, I'm going to. For the fact there's only one blue number on there and they lead the division and they have a pretty good record, I'm going to give them an A. But barely. So if I was going to do an A minus, that's where that one would go. So we go over to the Central. Chicago, I'm going to give them a D. The reality is I think there's a lot of line juggling going on. There's not a lot of offense. And there's a franchise player who could potentially be a generational player in Connor Bedard, who seems to be kind of languishing right now. So I'm going to put a D grade there on Chicago. Colorado, I know. People are going to say they deserve a C for their numbers all the way across. They've had tons of injuries. They're still 11-9. I think they're trending in the right direction. They just won in Washington. I'm going to give them a B. The fact that they've come through all these injuries and they're still potentially looking at a nice, run towards the playoffs, it says a lot for the depth in the organization, for the coaching, and just for the team's ability to eke out some points. I'm also going to give a B to Dallas. Dallas, I think, can be better. They can absolutely be better than what we've seen thus far this season. Minnesota gets an A. Has to be an A for Minnesota. No one expected them to be this good, other than maybe the most ardent, die-hard Minnesota Wild fan. Somebody paint their face all pink or all green and red. Maybe wear like a hat that looks like grass and anyways. I'm just thinking, what would a Wild, if you're gonna dress up like a Wild, what would that? Would it just be like a bear or a tiger or like what? If you're gonna like the Devils, you paint your face like you get the devil look. What would that be for the Minnesota Wild? What would that look like? Nashville. It's been a long day. I'm tired. Nashville. It's definitely a D for Nashville. I don't think I can call any other grade for Nashville. For St. Louis. Oh, I don't know that I can give them a C. I gave San Jose a C because they've been competitive. They've been playing well. Yeah, D for St. Louis. Utah, they got off to a really good start, but it has been a really tough watch over the last little while. I'm going to go with a D for Utah as well. Man. And what's interesting is it's an A for Winnipeg. So how interesting is that? 2 A's, 2 B's, 4 D's. This one 1A, 2 B's, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 C's. So you take the good, you take the bad, and then there's mediocre. And then you have the facts of life. So there you go. All done grading teams at the quarter. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Always let me know why I'm wrong in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.